Welcome to South Tyrol in Italy, a region famous for its towering mountains, crystal clear lakes and stunning nature all around. And this lake is also part of this idyll, Lake Reschen, also known as Lago di Resia in Italian, a stunning postcard scene and a leisure destination for sailors and kitesurfers. But if you take a closer look at this lake, there is something that doesn't quite seem to fit in. Right in the middle of the lake stands a church tower. On its roof sits a cross, and you can even still see the pattern of the clock. But otherwise, the tower is completely empty, and the church around it is missing too. The tower just stands here, lonely and abandoned for years, right in the water.
This bell tower in the water today is a famous landmark of the village of Graun in the Finchgau Valley. It's on postcards and on Instagram and influencer pictures as well as in travel guides. However, what many people don't know is there is actually a sad story behind it. A story I'd like to tell you today. This is how the village of Graun died. Okay, here we are. I just arrived at Lake Reschen, or Lago di Resia in Italian. Take a look at the water, the color. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah, and what you can also see is the lonely church tower right behind me in the middle of the water. And I would say the first thing I'm going to do is go down to the water and take a closer look at it. And while I'm doing that, maybe let's answer the most important question first. Why the heck is this church tower standing lonely in the water? To find out, you already know it, we have to take a deep dive into history.
Many hundreds of years ago, this place you see right here did not have the single large lake you see today, but rather a valley with three natural lakes. The original Reschen Lake, the Graun Lake, also called Mitte Lake, and the Heide Lake. And right in the middle of this valley lay a village named Graun, today also known as Curon in Italian. Not a large place, but a lively community. The people here, mostly German-speaking, lived a simple yet fulfilling life. They were farmers and cattle breeders whose livelihood was based on raising brown Swiss cattle. The land around the lakes was their home and the foundation of life. There were around 163 houses here in Graun, many of them with medieval roots, bay windows and beautiful window frames, and at the center of the village stood the Church of St. Catherine with its impressive Romanesque bell tower from the 14th century, consecrated in the year 1357. That tower, which today rises from the water, was back then the landmark of the village.
In the 1920s, however, the residents of Graun were alarmed by rumors that kept spreading here in the region, because plans were revealed that would change the idyll, including the village life in Graun forever.
There were talks about a massive energy project. The plans for it date back to the time when South Tyrol was annexed by Italy. Until 1918, the region had belonged to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but with the end of the First World War and the Treaty of Saint-Germain in 1919, South Tyrol was handed over to Italy. That alone already led to serious tensions in the region. About 90% of South Tyrolians did not want to become part of Italy, but the Italian state tried to strengthen Italian identity in the region. The German-speaking population responded with resistance and unrest. And then, on top of that, this major project at Lake Reschen became known. Italy was planning a reservoir. The reason behind the plans was the strong push at the time to increase energy production through hydropower. The project foresaw merging the original Reschen Lake and the Graun Lake into a single large reservoir. A plan that would have enormous consequences for Graun, the village would be flooded. By 1920, several consortia had applied to build and operate power plants, but in 1921 the projects were put on hold since they did not comply with Tyrolean law. Graun was allowed to remain, and for the time being, its residents could breathe a sigh of relief.
But then the year 1937 came and the plans were revived. And they were much more concrete and drastic than anything that had been discussed before, with far-reaching consequences for Graun.
The fascist regime in Italy played a significant role in these plans. From 1937 onward, the government intensified the project and pressured companies to submit new proposals. Democratic processes were completely ignored throughout, and the local population had no say whatsoever. The energy company Montecatini from Milan eventually became the main actor behind the plans and set in motion the construction of the large reservoir, which was to raise the water level by 22 meters. The plans were approved in 1939. The problem? The announcement was made in Italian, a language that many of the German-speaking residents barely understood, and it was simply posted along with other decrees, a procedure that completely bypassed the legal processes required at that time. Nevertheless, the ministry in Rome declared the work urgent and unavoidable and gave Montecatini the green light. This period also saw the so-called Option Agreement of 1939. South Tyroleans had to decide at that time whether to stay in Italy and give up their language or relocate to the German Reich. Also in Graun, this agreement caused uncertainty and it significantly weakened local resistance to the reservoir project.
And so the plans were implemented here in Graun. The construction for the reservoir began in 1940 and was interrupted again in 1943 because of the Second World War. The residents here in Graun hoped that at least the war would end this project forever, but guess what? That did not happen.
In 1947, just 2 years after the end of the war, Montecatini announced that it would resume work. During this time, the local residents repeatedly tried to stop the plans through protests. Many also saw the project as a legacy of the fascist regime, which had suppressed their German language and now seemed intent on destroying their homeland. The residents also took legal action against the plans. Many argued that the project was illegal because the planned water level had been raised from 5 to 22 meters, which would have required a new permit, but all of this was to no avail. Moreover, the company treated the residents of Graun quite harshly. The compensation offered was extremely low and was accepted by no property owner, which in effect led to expropriations.
On the 1st of August 1949, something happened that left the residents here in Graun in shock. The village's fate was already sealed back then. However, the farmers had been ensured that they could at least harvest their crops. However, that did not happen.
On that day, the dam sluices were closed for a test run without any warning. The result? All the fields were flooded and the entire harvest was destroyed. This was the final straw. The population protested massively against the test flooding, forcing the police to step in to protect Montecatini's workers. Despite the tireless efforts of a local priest who even visited the Pope to ask for help, the protests could not prevent the flooding. In the summer of 1950, the bells were removed from this historic church tower. Shortly afterward, around 163 houses and the affected farm buildings were blown up or demolished. And then, as you can imagine, the entire village was flooded to create the new Lake Reschen.
About 1,000 people lost their home due to the flooding of the village of Graun, including 150 farmers. About 70% of the population emigrated after the event or moved away, and the rest was relocated to the new built Graun above the lake.
The flooding was not just the loss of houses and land, it was the loss of an entire community, an entire way of life. And the people of Graun had to watch as their home village disappeared beneath the waters. Only the church tower was spared because it was considered historically valuable and placed under heritage protection. Its curious location in the middle of the lake later became a popular photo motif, and in 2020 even a Netflix show told its story, Curon, an Italian horror series. This show also picks up a famous legend that had been told in the region ever since the flooding. People say that on especially clear nights or when fog drifts across the lake, the sound of the bells can still be heard. The story goes that the bell ringer of Graun refused to leave when the waters rose. He stayed behind in the church and vanished without a trace. Some say he drowned and believe he became a ghost, forever ringing the bells from deep below. So, today, the lake with its lonely tower had become, for many, a place of leisure, and for others, the haunting setting of a famous horror tale. And for the residents of Graun, some of whom still live in the area today, the church tower remained one thing above all else: the last witness to their former home.
So, that's it. That was my video about the sunken village Graun. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. If you did, then please leave a thumbs up. You can also hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming video. And if you'd like to support me and my work, you can also do that. For example, on Patreon, there is a link down in the description, or you can become a channel member on my YouTube channel. There's a button somewhere here around the video. Then you will get exclusive stuff and new videos before everyone else, so you should check that out. That's it for today. Have a safe journey. See you next time.